One of the big things that is going to change today is that we'll no longer have a president in the United States who refers to our continent by using a rude word. It's someone who appears to want a constructive engagement with Africa. Professor Krista Howard is a professor at Howard University in Washington. Professor Johnson, good afternoon to you. I mean, we all know, I'm afraid, how outgoing President Trump feels about our continent. Do you think we can hope the Biden administration is going to give Africa more constructive attention than Trump did?
I think he will. One of his tasks is really going to be to rebuild our State Department and our diplomatic corps. And I hope that as he's doing that, he really takes into consideration diversity among, of course, Americans in terms of building the diplomatic corps, but also really reaching out to, obviously, our traditional allies, but really broadening that. Africa, I think, is going to be important in terms of fulfilling Biden's international agenda on a number of fronts. He's already put as top of his list climate change and a number of other important issues that Africa is really going to, and African countries are going to play an important role in.
I mean, in some ways, what Trump did is he pulled away from what's called multilateralism, groups of nations working together. I mean, the United Nations is the best example, NATO. But I mean, if we see a move where America moves back towards multilateralism, that's going to be quite important for Africa because of the need to build coalitions in Africa and involving different nations who have similar aims.
Absolutely. And I think actually what we're anticipating seeing even today is really some very clear moves from President Biden to signal to the international community that the United States is back and that you're going to see a much more traditional role played by them. We anticipate that he will rejoin the WHO today. He will rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. He will rescind the Muslim travel ban, which of course affects a number of African countries. So he's going to do, I think, just even in his first 24 hours, a number of moves that will really signal a very significant shift in terms of the U.S. foreign policy.
There is, I wouldn't say hostility in Africa towards the United States. Let me use the word suspicion. And this comes because, I'm afraid to say, of the role that America has sometimes played in African countries, the sort of claims that it's been a transactional relationship, it's prized stability above all else, and there are examples, of course, that we could go for. What this leads to is a suspicion that America is going to have a very transactional relationship with Africa. And then, of course, Trump has really fed into that. He's increased that suspicion. Can Biden overcome all of that?
I think he can. I think it's, very important, obviously, for us to not, obviously, given the events of January 6th, it's important for the United States to not present itself as somehow, the only beacon of democracy and the only country that is able to teach the rest of the world lessons, especially when it comes to democratic governance and the like. So I think what you're going to see from a Biden administration, I think, is hopefully more listening and more understanding and more appreciation that we certainly still, I think, have something to bring to the table. And obviously, one of our big foreign policy priorities is to promote democracy and democratic governance abroad. But we're going to have to do that, I think, in partnership more, and also recognizing that there's not really the kind of binary terms that we use in democracy versus authoritarianism is really more of a bit of a sliding scale, as we ourselves have seen. So I think that hopefully we'll be more, I think, engaging really around these issues, and hopefully more vulnerable in some ways and open to being able to discuss our own limitations with regards to our own democracy, which is a flawed democracy. Certainly, we see this around racial justice issues in this country, and hopefully bring those lessons then to the international community. I think if we approach African countries in that spirit, of course, there's a lot that the rest of the world still looks to the United States for and admires the United States for, and I think that will continue.
You are, I'm afraid, as the United States, kind of a lot of competition from China. I mean, over the last decade, China has really increased its influence on our continent. I've interviewed the former Chinese ambassador to South Africa. In some ways, he's almost become a minor celebrity for a time. He's left us now. The reason I say this is that I mean, around the world, you're in sort of a competition with China. That's reflected in Africa too. And I would argue that China has used the Trump administration's time, well, very well for themselves.
I think that's absolutely right. And I'm sorry, I hope I haven't dropped out. That's absolutely right. As you said before, the Trump administration was very much transactional, and so I think that its relationship with African countries was really one vis-a-vis was there any leverage that we could gain vis-a-vis China, really. And I think that we need to not the United States and the Biden administration moving forward needs to make sure that we really move away from this kind of strategy or approach of seeing the African continent as almost a Cold War, of the U.S. vis-a-vis China. I think, as I said before, if we stick to our core values and principles, those are things that resonate with many people in Africa. You have a youth bulge in Africa who are entrepreneurial, who are looking for economic opportunities. If we engage those African public, I think the United States has a lot to offer, and there's a lot of similarities and synergies that we can work on. So we can, and in so doing, we can advance our values and our aims and our ambitions over China. But to kind of simply suggest that Africa is going to be this new, battlefront, for this new kind of superpower war is going to be problematic if the Biden administration chooses to go in that direction.
Something that the United States did, and it was actually during the time of George W. Bush, also a Republican, was that they really made sure that Africa had enough money and resources to fight the AIDS pandemic as it was at the time. I mean, things have changed now. It was the PEPFAR program. In this country, America often remembered for that. We're now facing COVID-19. Now, of course, in your country, this has been an incredibly difficult time. But I think there might be some people on our continent looking to American help for vaccines.
And hopefully that will come. I think absolutely. We can't have a kind of nationalization of vaccines. I think the first step that President Biden's going to make today, rejoining the WHO and engaging in really the international discussions and conversations around how do we distribute the vaccine more widely, especially to developing countries and those most in need. So I think that you will see that. And as you said, there's a real opportunity there for the United States to lead in that regard, and also for the United States to really, I think, gain back a degree of credibility. And of course, that's a main priority for the Biden administration.
Professor, I hope you don't mind me asking you this question. In some ways, you might see it as a slightly personal question, but how important is it for you? I mean, you come from Howard University, what's described as a historically black university. In the United States, that has real meaning. It's after the Civil War, it's after slavery. You're a professor, and I would imagine it would have been very difficult for your mother to be a professor before you, and even more difficult for her mother to be a professor before her. And today, Kamala Harris is going to be sworn in as the Vice President of the United States. How important is that for you?
It's extremely important. I don't think that we can underestimate that. It's really remarkable in some ways how the mood and the tone of the country has already changed. And really, I mean, today is a day of celebration. Many young girls and older girls like myself are going to be, hovering around the TV to watch this historic and momentous occasion. It's really a remarkable achievement, and I think one that also, bodes well for American democracy and for our country. I think it's going to be a very healing experience for us.
Oh, Professor, just to
and
see.
Of course, I was just going to say, and of course, coming from Howard University, Vice President Kamala Harris is an alum of Howard University, and we are just, of course, over the moon with excitement. We've all been sending her lots of notes and cards and congratulations.